I got a vasectomy 3 years ago, but my wife just told me that she is pregnant. That next day, I went to the doctor to get tested and took my daughter as well, to see if she was my biological child. Hi, I'm Nathan. Thank you for listening to my story. I think I did the right thing, but I'm second-guessing myself now. Let me know what you think. My wife and I spent 2 years together in college and got married the fall after we graduated. We spent 2 years exploring our relationship and finally got settled down and was ready to raise a family. She got off birth control and her libido took off, but it took 3 years for us to get pregnant, but we got a beautiful girl finally. After a couple of months, my wife got back on birth control and had a hard time with it. Her doctor switched her meds several times, but she had bad side effects with each one. We talked about it and were unsure if we wanted another child, and since it was easier for me to get a vasectomy reversed later if we decided to have more children, I had the operation. That was 3 years ago, and after coming off birth control, my wife has felt better and sex has been worry-free since she can no longer get pregnant. We actually have sex more now than when we were in college. Then 3 weeks ago, my wife was late for her period, which isn't that unusual for her. Then I noticed her breasts were a little tender and she started what seemed like signs of morning sickness. Now I know there have been cases of nature-reversing vasectomies, so I went to the doctor and had my sperm count checked, and the verdict was I'm still sterile, but I didn't tell my wife. My wife finally went to her doctor and confirmed she was pregnant, and so she had me go to my doctor to get tested. I didn't go right away because I was literally sick from the stress of the situation. I had all sorts of sick scenarios going through my head. In the end, I got retested and I took my daughter in and had a DNA test done for her. I got both test results back today and got violently sick after reading them. Yes, I am sterile, and no, my daughter isn't mine. I went through so many different emotions, sadness and rage being the primary two. I knew I had to confront her. When she got home, I told her to sit down with me in the living room. The look on her face let me know that she knew what was coming. I showed her my test, and she denied any wrongdoing, saying that there was a problem with the test. Almost like a mic drop, I dropped the second test from last week on the table. She opened it, took in the information, and broke down crying. I finally got it out of her. She told me who she had slept with and that it only happened once. She said the condom must have failed. I made her tell me the story 3 times, and each time I asked her if that was the whole truth and if there was anything else that she needed to tell me, because another lie would mean we were through. She said that was the only time, and she had never done anything like that before. At that moment, I knew my marriage was over. I gave her a chance to confess. I opened the door for reconciliation, but she continued to lie. I told her how much this hurt me and asked her how she could do this to our family and if it was worth it. I asked her if she wanted a divorce, and she pleaded with me to forgive her and put this behind us. I said I couldn't raise someone else's child and asked her if she would be willing to terminate the pregnancy in order to stay together. She cried the rest of the night, but when we went to bed, she said she would do whatever it took to save our marriage. I never brought up the DNA test. I will contact a lawyer next week to see what my options are about if I have to pay child support on our first child. If she had come clean about the father of our first child, I could have swallowed my pride and tried to work to forgive her, but she thought she was in the clear and didn't need to confess to anything else. This week I found a lawyer. She is awesome. She had me bring in a bunch of paperwork, bank statements, and my medical and DNA results and had me tell her my story. Her assistant sat in with us and took notes while my lawyer went through my documents. After I finished, she asked a few questions and spelled out my options. I live in an at-fault state, which is good and bad. Good as in it gives us leverage, bad as it takes longer and much more expensive. In the case of the first child, if my wife agrees to sign the papers, my liability for child support is an easy fix. If she doesn't agree, then a court-ordered DNA test and a judgment from the court can remove me without my wife's consent. Either way, I will most likely not have to pay child support. One way is just more expensive than the other. Since my wife has a good job and earns close to what I do, she didn't think the judge would award her any alimony. And all of that plus dividing up property and other things can be negotiated before a judge gets involved. The bad news was due to the holidays. They couldn't have the papers ready before Christmas, but definitely would before the end of the year. She advised me to say nothing until she got served. She gave me a list of things to do before and after Christmas. This was to get ready to serve my wife. One thing they did point out was since we were actively trying to have a baby, there was a possibility that my wife didn't know that the child wasn't mine. My wife has an appointment with her OB tomorrow. So I met my sister at my house, and we started moving my stuff to her house while the divorce goes through, or at least until my wife leaves and I get possession of the house. We took 4 carloads to her house and came back for the rest. My sister felt it important for her to be there for support and as a witness. I also moved the nanny Kim into the living room so it could record everything in the cloud. At about 10:45 a.m., I got a text from the lawyer saying she had been served. I sent her an email saying that I am at the house when she is ready to talk. A couple of minutes later, I got a text from my wife saying, "Why? Blah, blah, blah." So I resent the first text and waited for her to get home. She sent several texts and voicemails. They don't mention anything about cheating, just how she thought we were working this out, and she thought we would sit down and have a conversation before proceeding with a divorce. Playing the family card and how this will devastate the child and our families. How she feels betrayed. That was a good one. How much more of a hypocrite can you be? She was still sharing her location, and it took her 20 minutes before she left work. She then stopped at a nearby Walgreens for a few minutes. The purpose of the stop at Walgreens became clear as a police car pulled in behind her in the driveway. According to the officers, she got the police there because she said she was afraid and that we had guns in the house. I showed the officers my empty gun safe and said that I had removed them to another secure location. I then asked them if they would like a coffee or soda and they could stay for the show. Both told me they were fine, and we all went back to the living room. I then showed my wife the paternity test that I had done. It showed her daughter was not mine. Her response was denial and disbelief, which appeared genuine. She broke down and cried for about 10 minutes. I told her this was the final straw and why I wanted the divorce. At about that time, the police officers reminded me to keep it civil and made their exit. I told them that I was leaving soon to stay at my sister's house. When I asked who the child's father was, she claimed she didn't know. I asked if there were that many guys she was sleeping with, or did she just not know his name. I asked how many times had she cheated on me between pregnancies, to which she said it was just the 2 of them. I repeated what I had said earlier. If she didn't tell the whole truth, that I was done. I reminded her that I couldn't and wouldn't raise someone else's child, and that she had better figure out who the real father was because I wasn't paying child support for someone else's baby. She wanted to know what we were going to tell our daughter. My mind then exploded. I said that was up to her because this was her mess, and I wasn't taking the blame or cleaning it up for her. I drafted a couple of emails last week. One for our friends and family with copies of all the test results and reasons why I was asking for a divorce. The other for my wife with copies of the same tests along with what I knew and things that I had told her previously. I had to run it through my lawyer and make a couple of edits before she signed off on it. I sent copies to all our friends and relatives when she pulled into the driveway this afternoon. Most of the feedback has been one-sided and very colorful. I was actually a little shocked that most of her family took my side and understood my actions. There were some that asked me to consider her daughter did no wrong in this. I told them that I see her mother's green eyes every time I look at her. I just cannot. All of our mutual friends have cut her off, especially the women, for fear that she would make an advance on their spouse. In the end, I told her if she had been truthful, we might have been able to work things out. But I couldn't trust a lying serial cheater, and I told her if she had gotten her tubes tied instead of me getting a vasectomy, she might have got away with it. I told her she needed to get a lawyer so we could move forward and start to heal. Update. I realized this morning I had lost 8 pounds since this ordeal started, and some of my clothes were just hanging on me. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel now, and I am not afraid. She did tell me who the biodad was, but I don't know if I can believe her. Doesn't matter to me at this point. She did say she hasn't reached out to him yet, which makes me think she is deflecting. I think I remember meeting him a time or two, but he was not part of our friends group. Not my monkey, not my circus anymore. We had our second meeting with the lawyers today, and we signed off on almost everything except the house. I'm still waiting for an appraisal to come back to figure out the split. Motions got filed today, and a court-ordered paternity test was scheduled for all 3 of us. Since ex-wife didn't fight me on everything, we filed a no-fault divorce petition. If everything goes right, I get the house back on February 15th, and the divorce will be final on April 5th. The lawyers did a good job keeping us separated and the conversation between the 2 of us to a minimum. I was a little worried when she came in. She was pale and with no energy to speak of. I couldn't tell if it was lack of sleep or maybe over-medication. She just stared out the windows as the lawyers read everything to us before we signed some of the papers. Walking out felt like I had shed a giant weight from around my neck. My HR got me signed up for therapy. My company is great about looking after mental health. My boss had put a bottle of champagne on my desk and offered me some time off if I needed it. I told him I was excited to get back to work and let him know that I appreciated the gesture. That is the end of my story. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Please take the time to subscribe to the channel. It is a small thing for you but means so much to the TDG team. Thank you.